Hello, everyone. This is Tony. Because of the length of this podcast, I decided to break it up into two parts. Clearly, this is the first part that you're about to listen to, and the second one I will post about a week after I post this one.
This is Analog Spectrum. You're about to hear a whole lot of words that don't rhyme with orange.
Okay.
I'm doing the theme song now.
All right, we are recording.
Yes.
All right, this is Analog Spectrum. This is Tony, and of course I'm here with Doug. And this is a special podcast. We're actually, I'm very excited about this podcast because there's a whole lot of firsts going on today. First guest. And the guest is my nephew, Grant, and we're going to get into why I invited him here. And it's the first podcast where I'm pretty drunk already. So
I was going to say this might be the first podcast where Tony stays awake through the whole thing.
Hey man, shut up. So again, Grant is joining us, and the reason I invited Grant to be part of this podcast is he just got done riding his bike with a group of other University of Texas students from Austin, Texas, or near Austin, Texas, from Texas to Alaska as part of an organized ride through the University of Texas, and I'll let him detail. I'll let you just give me a minute, Grant. I'll give you about another 45 minutes, and then we'll have you jump in here. I'm almost done. Anyway, but again, he just with the Texas 4000, he just rode from Texas to Alaska. So tell us first off,
Hold on, before you get to the first question, do me a favor, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Hold that glass up to the microphone and jingle it a little. Okay, so when you hear that, we've had podcasts where you hear my dog snoring and grunting in the background. In this particular podcast, you're going to hear Tony's bourbon glass jingling with ice.
The very first podcast we did, oh my Lord!
Yeah.
I was like, oh, after like the first, I was editing it, and after like the first 10 minutes, I was like, fuck it. And everybody just gets to hear me drink bourbon.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what that sound is when people hear that. So anyways,
nice. All right, so tell us, can you give us a little history of the Texas 4000, what it's all about?
Can do. So Texas 4000 for Cancer is a nonprofit organization. It's associated with University of Texas at Austin, but it's not actually a student-led organization entirely. So we have that nonprofit aspect to it. It was started in 2004 by a guy named Chris Condit. And that was just like a bunch of scrappy people who came together and said, let's raise some money for cancer. Chris Condit's personal connection is that he had cancer. And he wanted to raise money for, I think, like the Cancer Foundation for the United States. I can't remember exactly what it was. But they rode two routes. They rode the Sierra route and the Rockies route, both of which start in Austin and end in Anchorage, Alaska. And since then, in 2016, we added the Ozarks route, which is the one that I did. And that goes, instead of through the Rocky Mountains like the Rockies route does, or through the West Coast like the Sierra route does, it goes from Austin to Houston, which, already this is taking a left turn. This is kind of weird. Yeah. And then from Houston to New Orleans.
Okay, you're still going the wrong way.
Still going the wrong way.
This is like a college student thing. All right, I'm getting it.
Yeah. We slept on the geography classes, it should be said.
Okay.
And then New Orleans all the way up the Mississippi River Basin to like St. Louis, Chicago, places like this.
Okay.
And finally, once we get into Canada, going to Winnipeg would be the first major city there. We head in the right direction. We head west, and we go through Manitoba and Saskatchewan.
And just, roughly how many miles is this?
So, like, if you did it with car, it'd be like 5,700 miles. So, like, that's probably like the total amount, something like that. But on the bike, because we drive some days, it's like 4,000 or 4,500 miles that you're biking in the summer. For my route, the other runs are a little bit different.
Okay, and you did this to raise money?
Exactly.
Could you not, like, wash cars or something, like sell some cookies, sell cookies up for the Walmart or something?
Yeah. And it wasn't just to raise money, but also to raise awareness, right?
Right, yeah. So,
all right, I
get
it.
Like the big spiel is like, we're spreading hope, knowledge, and charity. Like that's the motto.
No, that's actually cool. I'm not making fun of it. I'm just being an idiot.
Well, I mean, we do that kind of thing. Like, the riders are tasked with raising $4,500 each, at least, before they go on the ride.
Okay.
And I think of it as like you're building up a credit. Like you're promising people, I'm going to do this thing.
Right.
And to get them excited, you do stuff like bake sales, or you go panhandling on the street. And we have done a lot of that. But the reason why people are excited for it is we're going to get on the bike,
Because it's pretty impressive riding 4,000 miles on anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it takes 70 days. It's a long summer. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and so it wasn't just riding, but every night you would stop, or pretty much every night, correct? And you would meet people and tell your story, right?
Right. And one of the reasons why the Ozarks route makes any sense at all is that we get to visit hospitals and what's traditionally called the cancer belt of the United States. So this is the area of the United States that's most disproportionately affected by cancer.
Wow.
So like the Mississippi River Basin, like that's pretty much America's gutter.
Okay.
So lots of chemicals from refineries and other sources and up there. And as a result, you have more cancer cases.
Okay.
Kentucky has I think it's the number 1 or number 2 state in terms of smoking. So they have a disproportionate number
That's
of
crazy, man.
lung cancer cases.
I was thinking about this the other day. Like, I lived in California for quite a few years, and coming to Texas, there's still a lot of people that smoke.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And my dad lives in Kentucky, and there's a lot of people.
A lot of smokers.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't understand it. I mean, when we were growing up, I kind of get it because, I mean, which is World War II, they gave you cigarettes if you were in the military, right? And
They did.
yeah. And so, but
They gave us. Remember, and we're really. Oh, by the way, we're notoriously
we
notorious
never stay on
digressors.
topic.
So
Sure.
later on, we're going to be like, and that's honestly, Grant. What you need to do is you need to cut the Brussels sprouts in quarters rather than halves.
Yes.
And then when you
And
put
don't
it in the
forget the
deep
cheese.
fry,
Yeah, don't
and
forget the cheese,
don't do anything cheap.
Yeah.
You want to do a good Parmesan. So anyway, but both you and I were smokers.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was telling somebody just the other day, a carton of cigarettes now costs somewhere like $120.
Right.
And when we first, I was probably 1984, I think I got underway for the first time. And as soon as you get outside of international waters, you don't pay tax. So we could buy a carton of cigarettes for $5.
And we did.
And we did.
Yeah. And also we would make sometimes, like I used to chew also, and I would bring like rolls of tobacco with me when I got underway. And also in the life raft of the when you would do like life raft maintenance, and you would open up these life rafts, and they'd have like a kit in there for survival, and there was a pack of smokes.
Cigarettes were in there, yeah.
Smokes were in there.
But like nowadays, with the information that we have,
Why?
yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I get it if you've already hooked and it's hard to stop. I understand all of that. But like somebody that take up smoking now, I don't get it. I have a really difficult time understanding that.
So you head up. So you and like you were saying, you head over there, and you're that I didn't realize that. That makes a lot of sense. And almost everybody in your group, or most people, had a story a reason that they started to do they were drawn to this, why they wanted to do it, right?
Right.
And
right.
Would you be willing to tell your story?
Yeah, for sure. So
Definitely.
in my personal case, my mom passed away from cancer about 10 years ago. So I was a 7th grader. And, I had to give this spiel a number of times whenever I was on the ride. What we do whenever we go to locations is oftentimes if we're at a hospital or we're at a cancer support service or we're at a location that actually provides money to us, one of our sponsors, a number of students will get up and tell their stories. So I'll try not to sound like a robot because I've given this about 20 or 30 times this summer. But I was just a 7th grader whenever she passed away, and I didn't really deal with it in a very effective way, a very healthy way.
Okay.
Just kind of bottled up those emotions, you know how it goes sometimes. And it wasn't until later whenever I was a high schooler and I had friends that I was closer to and I started opening up that I started healing as a person.
Okay.
And so what I tell people is one of the reasons why I ride is just to let people know that that's an option, that you can be vulnerable and that there's actually a lot of strength through that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I got to tell you, like when we did, because Grant and I, God, it chokes me up. But when you did that Atlas, we did the Atlas ride together. I rode the first leg with him, which was like 50 miles. No big deal. No big deal. It was easy. Anyway, no, all joking aside. Sorry, but when you did that, and then we all met up there, and you told your story, man, it really grabbed me. You know what I mean? It really did. I mean, because again, we're family. And I remember when your mother passed away, and when you were a child, when you were in 7th grade and so forth, and I lived in Seattle, we weren't as close as I would have liked to have been, and so I really didn't know what was going on with you and how you felt, and to hear you tell that story really touched me, and I think it probably touched a lot of other people too.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah,
and that's one of the more gratifying parts of the ride. Actually, is it's whenever you tell your story, people say thank you, but also whenever you're just on the road, you're at a gas station or something, people come up to you and give you $20, and they'll say, "Thank you for what you're doing. You don't know who I am.
Right.
We're not gonna have a long conversation, but thanks for what you're doing."
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So first off, that's the Texas 4000. They've been going on since what year?
2004, I believe.
2004.
Yep.
And of course, COVID kind of affected. They weren't able to ride during the. They went to Canada border and came back, right?
COVID affected us in a number of ways. One is that in 2020, the rides didn't happen. It was virtual.
Okay.
That was a huge disappointment for a lot of people. And in fact, many people deferred that year and rode in 2021. And so that was a big year for us. We had maybe like 80 people, something like that. And so we had 4 routes that year.
Okay.
So we had, in addition to the Ozarks route, we had one that was called the Smokies route, and that went farther east.
Whoa.
Made even less sense.
Yeah.
But we couldn't actually go into Canada because the border was closed.
Sure,
So
yeah.
people turned around the border and came back to Austin,
Okay.
which from a rider's perspective, that sounds immensely frustrating because you want to go to Alaska.
Yeah, yeah.
And also you don't want to finish back in Austin because you're backing through like Amarillo area
right.
potentially. It's like this
I'm familiar with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just drove that because I drove the vans and the trailers back with all the bikes in them from Anchorage to Austin. So I got to go through the Rockies route, and here I've meandered a bit, but actually it's a good segue into another way that COVID affected us, which is that our recruitment numbers were down in 2021. So 2022, which was my team, was a small team.
Okay.
And we ended up only have 2 routes instead of the usual 3. So we had that Sierra route, which goes through the West Coast, and we had the Ozarks route, which goes east. And that Rockies route didn't happen. So whenever we drove the support vehicles back, I got to drive through that part, through the Rockies Mountains, and we visited some people that we had given money to. We stayed with some hosts that are historic with us.
Okay,
tend to go to. And that was a cool experience for me. But yeah, we ended up through Amarillo at the end of the day. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So how you say your team? How many people were on your team?
My team was 24 to begin with, and then we had, I want to say 3 people drop for various reasons.
Okay.
Nothing unplanned, like people had to start job or go to med school, stuff like that.
Okay.
And the other route, Sierra, had the same number, 24, and they dropped maybe 1 person, so we ended up with like 44 at the finish line.
That's a lot of riders, man, to make
It
that
is.
far. Yeah.
It is, yeah.
So that's a big commitment. I mean, each individual person, you add all that up, that's a lot of commitment.
It takes a village, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
And also, and to that point, like they set up a series of rules for you when you sign up that you have to raise a certain amount of money, right? You have to. What are the things you have to do to get to that point where you actually show up for the Atlas ride and you start the ride?
Like I said, we each raised $4,500.
Right.
We volunteered, I want to say 25 hours, like 15 one semester, 10 another semester. We went to a lot of meetings. So your ride begins about 18 months after you join. It's like a year and a half. So I applied like fall of 2020, and then I was accepted that winter, and then that semester in 2021, that spring was whenever I started going to Monday meetings. So we had meetings every Monday. They're like 2 hours plus.
Had to go.
Yeah, you have attendance, and that's where you learn about what the whole Texas 4000 thing is about.
Okay.
You start meeting your friends, and then the next semester we started like training. So we have our bikes because of COVID supply chain issues. We ended up having bikes in January of 2022. Usually we would have had them in the fall preceding that in October. So we had a compressed training schedule, which is one of the reasons why our team was so small, actually.
Okay.
Is because when you compress a training schedule like that, you do more miles more quickly. People get injured.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you had bike failures too, and things like that.
Right, mechanical failures, which may or may not have been caused by the bikes being put together less carefully in that
I'm glad you
timeline.
said that because I was thinking about by a couple of monkeys or something. I don't know. You get that little pause, and I'm thinking to myself, bikes put together by people like me and Tony. That's great. Don't ride it. It's not safe.
So, but yeah, and tell us about your bike.
I have a giant Command AR bike. Don't know much other than that it's aluminum. Like it's not carbon fibers, nothing fancy. Probably about $1,500. We also had libs. We had felts, similar quality.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I know talking to one of my other friends rode it, and I think at the time they had all that they all had. But again, supply chain issues. But they all had the same bike. But I think with you they had to put together a series of bikes. What components did you have on it?
What do you mean?
Is it 105s or Shimano, or do you know?
Oh, do you mean the derailleurs?
Yeah.
They're like Shimano Solars.
Gotcha.
So like, $40 derailleurs.
Gotcha.
I mean, if I were to do a bikepacking trip myself, I wouldn't have this setup. Like, I would have like a steel frame bike.
Right.
I'd have probably much more durable derailleurs and derailleur hangers on it.
Gotcha.
It works. You go faster on that, and of course, we're not putting bags on our bikes whenever we're biking because we have the support vehicles.
Right.
So if you're doing something self-supported, you definitely need something that's going to take more wear and tear.
Gotcha.
And these bikes right now, like, they're run to the ground. Like, we've had several mechanical issues. Most of them are still functioning, but we've definitely have our ups and downs with them.
Well, I got a question for you. So this is probably more appropriate at the end. You can tell us again at the end, but. In the business that I'm in, we get requests for donations all the time. Oftentimes not nearly as valuable as what you're talking about. So if anybody happens to hear this, can they donate a bike, or can they just give money? Or, how can folks get involved in that way?
Of course. Yeah, you can reach us at texas4000.org. That's probably the best way to do it. I am curious what business you're in.
I'll tell you that off air.
Sure. Oh, yeah, fair enough.
I don't want nobody showing up my door asking for stuff.
Yeah, we ask for a lot of donations on the ride. And it's usually like, hey, Home Depot, so our lock broke. Can we get a new lock, please? It's for cancer, please. Right. And very, very often they say yes. Sure. We also get a lot of food. It turns out that chains frequently have programs where they're happy to help out nonprofits to get a tax deduction. So you call it Pop John's, you're like, hey, we have 24 hungry people. We're biking for charity. They're like, all right, what do you want?
Yeah, give me your tax ID number.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We have that on hand.
Sure. Yeah, I get
it. And okay, so I'm just backing up here a little bit, just kind of doing it, moving through it. And so what were your training rides like? What did you do?
We started in January, like I said. We did maybe 5-10 miles the first training ride, and preceding that was
Wait, hang on a second. Did you say 5 or 10 miles? Are these people that are not like cyclists? Like Tony, he rode 100 miles all the time.
No. Some people haven't even ridden a bike before. What? They're at that level. So you have like.
Hang on a second. So you're telling me people that is not gonna, they're not cyclists. I'm air quoting right now, and they're gonna commit to riding 4,000 miles.
Yes. Jeez. Yes. Well, it self-selects for a very adventurous type of person. Okay. Which makes the summer ride fun.
That I did not know. I thought you guys were all like amazing? Cycle nerds.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
That is crazy.
See, I didn't know that. I'm glad you asked that question.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I thought these were all like a group of cycle nerds. Like, hey, let's do something cool.
Well, even Grant, even though he rode and he did a lot of other. He was very physically active, and of course, he knew how to ride a bike. But you were not a quote unquote cyclist before this.
By no means. No, I was just a commuter.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, sorry to interrupt, but that
it's a great question.
It struck me like
great question. Yeah. Well, it shifts over time.
And I appreciate your kind of amazement, because I same for me when I first heard that. Yeah.
Well, originally it was a lot of people who are very athletic.
Sure.
And now it's more people with connection to cancer and people who are pre-med, and this is something that's like right up their alley in terms of like, I want to be an oncologist, for instance.
Okay.
Well, before the first ride, we have like 3 or 4 days where it's like just training. And this isn't like this every year. I think sometimes they space it out more. But for our year, it was 3 or 4 days all in a row. And it was, okay, this is how you ride a road bike, which is different than a regular bike.
Sure.
Like a road bike, you have cleats that you fit into pedals, and they click on. Mm-hmm. And you're strapped in. If you fall, you fall. It's hard to get out sometimes, especially whenever you're a beginner.
You might have to edit this, but just ask Joe Biden. He knows.
Oh, did he fall the bike? Yeah,
he did fall the bike.
Yeah, I just saw that. Yeah.
I'm just leaving that right there. Okay, moving on from that. So the training was good, was it?
So, but he wasn't part of the Texas 4000.
That's true.
So
well, we fell a lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Very early on. Lots
everybody
of falls.
does. Yeah. I tell you, and I do have a funny story about that. But again, an offline story that I will tell. Remind me here a little later, and we'll. I'll tell the story in front of my wife, who's also in that story. But I have fallen over sometimes, and again, you talk about being a beginner. Sometimes you just fall over. I mean, you will just fall over. I mean, something will happen where you have to stop quickly, and you try to unclip, and you just
Day 70, we had a couple of falls.
Sure,
it happens. Yeah.
It just, don't judge. I don't judge on that.
I'm going to remind you of this when you try to get me to start riding bikes with you.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. No. I mean, yeah. You
Okay.
fall. Go ahead. Yeah.
So yeah, and so your training then did you ramp up pretty quick or did you guys?
Right. So then we added 10 miles every weekend. So we had Saturday rides, which most people have time on Saturdays. This is a good time to have a big group ride together. Then we would have on the weekdays, it's kind of like schedule something that works for you. So it would be, maybe 2 or 3 times a week you could go out for a ride. And these were shorter rides, like 20 to 40 miles usually.
On the weekend?
On the weekdays.
Okay.
But on the weekends, they started like, and every time you did a longer ride on the weekends, it was like level and locked. You can do that on the weekdays.
Okay.
That was the idea. So the weekends started with 5 or 10, then it moved up to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Then we did 100, 100, 100, 100, and then we were done.
Okay.
And the 100 was like a big deal. That was like the test. Like if you
Sure.
can do 100 miles on a bike in 10 hours, then you'll probably be able to bike this summer.
Okay.
It was rough because the first ride was pretty easy. The second ride was pretty easy. And then the third ride, it was like, oh, that's what it feels like to go up a hill. And then fourth ride was like 40 miles. It was, oh man, I can still remember. That was the day that my knees like got injured. And it was like the next month I just had knee pain every time I rode a bike. And I was not alone. I know other people that day, that's what got them. Is because suddenly you're adding elevation on top of these longer miles. Your body's not recovering fast enough.
Okay.
Your connective tissue just isn't ready for that. And
Yeah.
you talk about like getting in shape for riding a bike. A lot of it is cardiovascular, but if you're already in pretty good cardiovascular shape, it's more so, are your legs strong enough, and are your ligaments and tendons and stuff, are they strong enough?
Okay.
We had lots of people over the summer who just had overuse injuries, and this is just your knees not being able to take the volume.
Okay. Wow.
And
Yeah.
so during that training period, so just to kind of go back on this, people all along the spectrum of physical fitness, right? And did anybody drop at this time, or was there anybody in your group that was kind of like, okay, this is more than I can
Yeah,
chew?
bit off more than I could chew.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the attrition rate was high. I wouldn't attribute it to people saying, oh, I can't do this physically. It was more like, I can't do this physically because my body's broken.
Okay.
Because my knee's really messed up, and I this just wouldn't be a fun summer if I attempted it, or like I can't meet the deadlines that we have as an organization, that kind of thing. There are people who said, I can't do this because there's a lot of cars on the road, and I'm afraid I'm going to get hit by a car.
Right.
Which is a very real,
That's
real
valid,
feel.
heck yeah.
Yeah, it's completely valid.
Yeah.
So
we almost got hit on the Atlas ride.
we did. Yeah, we had a car come dead on at us trying to take a curve too fast in an oncoming traffic lane.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was scary.
that was scary.
Yeah, but nobody got hit by a car, to my knowledge, over the summer,
Okay.
which is awesome.
Good news. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, always a plus. And so you finish that, and and you've done all the preparation, you've raised the money, and I keep referencing the Atlas ride. The Atlas ride is the first leg, and it's really just a loop ride where the family and everybody kind of sees the group off, right? And,
That's right.
And how are you feeling then?
How was I feeling then? Excited for the summer, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, no nerves, no like holy crap.
No, that's not me. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, I was
He's a
just
stud.
eager
He's just
to
like,
get
yeah.
started.
He's like,
That's
please-
right.
Yeah, I was just trying to keep up with this guy. Yeah, Tony was going pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I just rid like 75 miles before.
I think that was the deal.
Yeah, the day before I was
that
all
was the
sore and I'm getting on the bike. By the way, your legs never don't feel sore during the summer. Like
Right.
maybe after a month of doing it, they start to recover and they start to feel normal again. But it took me a while before I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this feels good.
Yeah.
we're okay here.
I got to tell you something about that route, because we did a double loop, and it just seemed like it was all downhill. Like a lot of it was just downhill. It was that I would go back and do that ride again. That's a nice
a great ride,
It's a
yeah.
great ride, yeah, and scenic. And also I was going to comment on your training rides. Most of them were around Austin, right?
All around Austin.
Hilly, freaking
Very
hilly,
hilly, yeah.
very hilly.
Yeah, that Century was, I want to say 6,000 feet of elevation.
That is a monster.
Yeah, which is a lot of elevation.
Was it pretty much over the whole 100, or was there a period that was a little bit?
Some more than less. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. There were parts that we did twice that were particularly hilly, and that was always psychologically like just so terrible because you'd be like, all right, we've done it. But then this is mile 20, and at mile 80, we're going to come back and do it again.
Oh shit! I know that. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the whole that's why I don't like out and backs, because anytime you roll down a hill on an out,
Yeah,
you're coming back and you're gonna have to go up.
But
it.
the
You have
worst
to go-
part is you never went down that hilly section. You just came down the elevation a different way,
Oh,
but
shit.
you're coming back to it again. Yeah.
And anytime I map a ride out, and again, here we go digressing. Anytime I map a ride out, it always looks like like on the elevation, it always looks like a V or a U, which means that I am going to go down and then I'm going to go up, and I'm always like, oh, why am I doing this to myself? It is just it is a pain. But the two things I don't like is when you round a corner and you see a hill. I don't like that. That always is a little bit of a, and I also don't like it when there's like a really, like the ride I just got done doing. I hate it when you see that, and you probably saw this a lot riding through the middle of the country, where you have that straightaway that goes to the horizon, and you're just thinking, I'm going to be on this road for a while.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like, and you're probably on motorcycles too. You're probably aware.
Well, it's a lot different because you know, it's motorcycling.
Right.
But I used to run 5Ks and 10Ks, and it was the same deal. The thing that I hated, it was one thing to turn the corner and you see the hill. What I hated is that you get in the zone and you're not paying attention. You're actually feeling really good and you're running. And then all of a sudden you're like, why am I feeling so tired? Oh, shit. That's because I'm climbing this hill.
Yeah.
And you look at the top and you go, oh, crap. I still got all that to go.
I'm like, do you have a flat tire? What's going on
Yeah.
here?
Well,
Oh, no, the road's just going up.
and somebody hates me up there because there's a headwind too,
Yeah.
So you leave the Atlas and you start heading towards Houston, and one thing to comment on, this was like the hottest summer ever.
Yeah,
brutal.
day 2, my tires started sizzling and popping.
You are freaking kidding.
On the pavement, yeah. That was a rough day. That was going into College Station. That was one of the stops that we made.
Right.
And tires started popping. We stopped for a second, and then I was like, why is my foot wet? And it was my shoes. The rubber of my shoes was melting on the asphalt.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a very hot summer.
It's officially hot.
And yeah, no doubt. And so you, as far as like cycling kit, which is your shoes and your bib, and you wore bibs like you said, and chamois bib, has a chamois, and you wore the jersey. Did you just 70 days like you're hiking the Appalachian Trail kind of thing? That was what you wore, or did you have just one pair of shoes the whole ride?
Well, I had stuff to wear on rest days and when I was off the bike. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Right?
And did I mean, I guess I was curious, did you have 2 sets of everything, 1 set of everything for your kit?
Yeah, that's a great question because you get tired of wearing the same thing all the time.
Right.
So I had, like, off the bike, I would have 2 tank tops that I was infamous for wearing. By the way, everybody knew, like, their entire wardrobe because you only bring a couple things.
Sure, yeah.
So I had, like, 2 tank tops, a polo for whenever we were doing one of those programs to sponsors or to hospitals. I had 1 pair of shorts, no pants, so, like, 3 or 4 pairs of socks, and then some sneaks. I wish I'd brought sandals, but I didn't. I wish I brought pants because we'll probably get into this later, but in Canada, the mosquitoes are the worst.
Yeah.
So they just bit up my legs. It was terrible.
They're like hawks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like hummingbirds. They're like actual birds. But as far as the kit goes, I had 3 chamois and I had 3 jerseys that I wore. And
all
some of them, What?
All 22, because you told me that you had previous years, but you always wore a 22 jersey.
Well,
right?
that's the thing. We weren't supposed to wear 21 jerseys because our sponsors change, and so that would be disrespectful to them. But I ended up finding one inside the trailer that I hadn't brought with me, and I was like, my jerseys are so dirty. And I just and this has been in the lost and found for so long. So I started wearing it. It was nice because it's made for better pictures.
Right.
You saw what I was wearing earlier today. Yeah. It's just like ratty. It has stains all over it from all kinds of things, bike grease, and so on.
Right.
So that's what I ended up doing.
That's okay. I mean, I was curious, and backing up here, I'm sorry. There's another question I wanted to ask. I'm just going to ask it now. And you had 2 routes, and one they did Sierra or Rockies this year.
We did Sierra this year.
Sierra, and you did
Ozark.
Mm-hmm. So Sierra runs along the Pacific coast, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So it goes up 101 up through San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and then up into Canada.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so did you want to do Ozark, or did you?
No, my first choice was Sierra, then Rockies, then Ozarks.
Okay.
And what happened is I was offered the position of equipment and gear chair, which means I'd be kind of like the route mechanic. Right. I'd be responsible for the trailer having everything in it. I'd be somewhat responsible for the trailer and the vans being taken care of on the route. And I said, okay, this leadership position is worth not getting to go through the Grand Canyon or the Grand Tetons or whatever the big attraction is for whichever route.
Right.
And yeah, I think it was the right call for me because it did make my experience more meaningful.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And also, you mentioned that you do have days in the SAG. And SAG is support and gear. You have a day in the support and gear vehicle.
We did about 1 day a week in support and gear, and we did 1 day a week on rest days. So, for instance, whenever we went to New Orleans, Houston, St. Louis, Chicago, we just took a day off.
Okay.
So you're biking about 5 days a week.
Great. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many average hours a day?
Average hours?
Yeah.
So it'd be 90 miles in about 9 to 10 hours on the bike.
Okay. 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Oof.
Yeah.
Brutal.
And so right out of the gate, like 95, 100-degree days, headwind, tailwind?
Not a lot of wind early on. The wind really gets you in North Dakota, South Dakota, Manitoba, Saskatchewan.
Okay.
And those were some of the worst days because you can't really talk to anybody. Like whenever it's really hot, you can at least play music and talk to people, and you're uncomfortable, but you're still having a pretty good time. Out there on the headwinds were the worst because you'd just be hunkering down, and also that's harder on your body because you're just in one position the entire time. You don't want to get up off the drops. Or like you don't want to get your head up too high because the wind starts hitting you. So you don't move around as much as you usually do.
Right.
You're not reaching for water as much as you usually do. You're just kind of like taking it for 5 hours, just like getting hit in the face with that wind.
Right.
So those were the most psychologically difficult days by far.
Okay.
I can relate to that on a motorcycle. When there's a crosswind on a motorcycle, I am not having fun. It's just, you're leaning over 10 degrees and you're still getting blown into the other lane, and it's just tense the whole time.
Right.
It's not nice, relaxed.
Yeah.
Very stressful.
Yeah, I can tell you, like on a bike, there's a few times, like I was talking to one of my friends this weekend about this, is that there's definitely times where it's like you're kind of you're task loaded is what I refer to it as, where you're like, there's just so much going on that you're just like, I just need to, I need to get off the bike. You know what I mean? So,
Absolutely.
But yeah. But so you're heading out to Houston, head out to New Orleans. So during that early time with it hot and everything like that, were you just committed? Were you ever like, what did I sign up for or what?
I remember reminiscing with one of my friends on the drive back. And by the way, the drive back was awesome because you get 10 hours, 15 hours in a car with people who've gone what you've gone through.
It's awesome.
So you just get to process it and talk about the highs and lows and things like that.
Right.
I was talking to somebody, and we're just going day by day how the ride had gone for us. And I remember thinking, wow, that stretch that they were coming on New Orleans, that was really, really hard. And in the moment, it didn't feel like it. But in retrospect, it was just one thing after another that was very difficult for me.
Like what?
So let me tell that series of stories here. One was that coming out of New Orleans, I was on SAG, and the van broke down in some little town in Mississippi. And this is the van that tows the trailer, and we're broke down like in the middle of an intersection. So I'm over here just like calling the director of the program, trying to figure things out, and the person who was riding with me, he got out of the van and just like kind of directing traffic, which God bless him, because oh my God, was that a stressful moment?
It was a mess of it.
And we ended up getting it towed away, and we had to go find something else to tow the trailer for us. And by the time I got in that night, it was like 10 p.m. And I just like hadn't eaten anything, hadn't drink anything. And the next day we had a 140-mile ride.
Oh God, 140-mile ride.
140 miles through really, really humid, hot Mississippi weather.
140 miles.
Yes.
And like you were gonna have to ride the next day.
And I was riding the next day. So
Son of a bitch.
I got on the bike, and about 50 miles in, we hit our first gravel spot.
Were you like you win, cancer?
yeah. The running joke is we're fighting cancer, but cancer's fighting back.
Yeah.
No shit, man.
Yeah, we hit that gravel, and we're like, what do we do with this? And so we biked on it, and we went really slow. And riding slow on gravel is so tough because you're slipping and sliding, and nobody there is comfortable, so everybody's anxious.
Those are not gravel bikes either.
They're not road bikes.
Even gravel bikes are not great on gravel.
Right.
Yeah.
But nobody felt sure on their feet the way that they did towards the end. But by the end of it, it's like I saw a little gravel. I'm like, whatever. I saw 5 miles. Like if I do 5 miles of gravel, it's not a big deal for me anymore.
Right.
Depending on how loose the gravel is, of course.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
But we're doing this gravel, and it's like uphill, downhill. We're like just trying to keep it together. And that was the moment whenever my hands start cramping, and then 20 miles later my feet start cramping, and then 10 miles after that, like both my calf and my tibia start cramping.
Lord.
I'm just on the bike. What had happened is because I didn't drink any water the day before, because I was stressed out about the van thing. My muscles were completely depleted, and so I like down a whole bunch of electrolytes. It didn't help. And by the end of it, like mile 120 to 140, I was just like, I can only go this fast. I can't like flex my calf muscle.
Oh shit!
I was scared that it was gonna like start cramping in my quad and cramping in my stomach and stuff. It was just gonna go full body on me.
Right.
And it didn't happen, fortunately. But so that night, the pain continues because that night they had we had gotten a big thing of tamales donated, and these are like not your ordinary tamales. These are like thick tamales, like beefy, greasy tamales. And
you were in Mississippi.
We were in Mississippi.
Mississippi tamales. Mississippi tamales.
Yeah, and we
eat those things, Grant.
We had this girl on the team from Mexico, and she says, "Grant, those tamales, like, those are not right. They're way too big. They're too greasy. Like this and that. Like those are not tamales, Grant." I'm like, I don't care. Like I'm gonna eat them. So hungry, man. Do you realize what I've been through?
Series of bad decisions.
I thought I was gonna die that night. My stomach hurt so badly. So I was like 8 p.m. I roll over a trash can. We're staying in a YMCA. Yeah. Which I've explained where we sleep usually, but it's at various host locations. So these can be YMCAs, they can be churches, they can be people's homes.
Right.
Always super grateful to them, had only good experiences with them. But that night we're staying at YMCA, and I roll over a trash can to where I was sleeping on the floor of this gym. And I just like, for me, it's lights out. Everybody else, you go, you keep eating whatever you're eating and having fun, but I'm done. And I swore I was going to throw up that night. I just knew it was going to happen, but it didn't. It didn't. So I woke up the next day, I was like, oh, thank God I'm all right. Time to get on the bike for a 100-mile day. And it was like 100 miles, and it was just one road. It was just one road. And it was so hot, and we always... Like, we can refer back to, hey, do you remember the 140-mile day? Even though we had multiple 140-mile days, it's like, you know what they're talking about. Yes. This is that day that I went through where I started cramping and other people had other experiences. Right. Or, like, do you know... That day actually was 90 miles. It was 100 miles. So, do you know the 90-mile day? It's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It was the day after the 140-mile day. Right. And we did that, and it was... Like, I didn't cramp that day because I was very particular about how much water I was drinking, but... Oh man!
Yeah, I'd say two thoughts. One, like what you're talking about before, I've been there, and I refer to that as, and this is not my term. One of my friends mentioned this to me. He might hear this because I know he listens to the podcast, but he refers to that as pedal limping, like only using the weight of your legs to make the pedals go up and down. Pedal limping, just because you're so exhausted. And it's interesting because I know you have a heart rate monitor, right? And it'll get to the point where you can't exert yourself anymore because your heart won't beat any faster. Like in other words, like you'll say, I need to crank, and then you can't do it. You look down, your heart rate's like 148, and it's like that's it. That's as fast as it'll go, because it's all done. But the other thing I was going to say about this is that we live in a world where everybody expects to be comfortable, and almost to make other people uncomfortable. You know what I mean? They just expect comfort. I respect that, what you've done, only because you've experienced discomfort and you faced it and you pushed through it.
Real discomfort. Self-induced even.
Self-induced, pushed through real discomfort. Without and came out the other end of it.
Yeah, now can joke about it.
Yeah. So many people in this world would never have done that, man.
Well, I was going to say that sounds rough. It sounds almost as bad as the time I was on a motorcycle trip and I ran out of Dr. Pepper. I'm just like that was a bad day.
He told me about this like 3 times. He had to get a diet Dr. Pepper.
Oh no!
It was a fountain.
It was almost the end for me.
It was a fountain Dr. Pepper. It didn't even taste like Dr. Not even as good as diet Dr. Pepper.
Oh, dude, I can't even imagine.
I've never wanted a motorcycle more than at the end of the summer.
Keep twisting the damn throttle.
That sounds pretty good to me. Yeah. You see people on those Harleys out there, I'm like, they look cool. Like, and they're not working as hard as I am.
I got to tell you, actually, digress. Digress. I got to digress just for a minute. I was talking to, again, one of my friends the other day about Harley Davidson, and what was it, AMF?
Sorry, I was taking a drink. Yeah, AMF bailed out Harley back in the day in the 80s.
AMF is the people that make
bowling balls.
Yeah. And so Doug used to have had an AMF Harley. And what did people ask you?
I'm lost. No,
you told me one time that he would ride up in that AMF Harley, and people would say, "Hey, did you get 3 free games with that bike?"
Yeah. And no joke, it said AMF on it.
It did. I've seen it.
Yeah. It was a Sportster, a 1000cc Sportster.
Yeah, that was an embarrassing period in Harley's life.
Well, they saved them.
They did.
Yeah, saved them. They're still around now, and they're doing pretty good now.
They are. So, all right. Sorry. And then back on track.
Yep. So I got the question.
Oh shit!
I know this is the
I'm
question.
all worried.
I know.
There
I feel like we're on The View right now.
I know. So,
how
do you make your man happy?
I'm skipping that one. What your favorite stop favorite pit stopover? Out of you've stopped at many. What did you say? 70 days.
70 days.
So out of those roughly 70 days, what do you think was your favorite like stopover point?
There's a lot of ways that I could take this. Like one is, what are the rides I remember coming into these places? Because it's hard to take those apart in my mind. But the funny thing about that is actually the hardest rides are the ones that you remember the best. So like the 140-mile day is one of my favorite days because that's the day I really started to bond with a particular teammate of mine.
Okay.
I heard all about her life story and she heard about mine.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I'll forever remember that ride as one of my favorites, despite the pain. In terms of like nightlife, New Orleans takes the cake.
Oh, really?
That was one of the first days that we started to bond as a team, is going out to Bourbon Street.
Okay.
And, a couple of days ago, we had a big celebration of the ride at somebody's house.
Okay.
And this was the same house where we had done like a spring break ride back in spring break. So, and thinking about how the dynamics of the group has changed since spring break to now, the same thing happens in my memory throughout those summers. I can see us growing closer, and New Orleans was one of those moments for us where we were closer then than we had been in Houston, and we were much closer in Canada. In terms of the city itself, I'd have to go with Chicago. Chicago is really, really cool. Yeah, because the architecture was just phenomenal. And biking through it, it's like you get a little tour as you're coming into the city.
Okay,
How
cool.
do you go right through downtown Chicago?
We did. That day was so chaotic. We were supposed to go on like 40 miles of bike path before we got into the city itself.
Okay.
And it ended up being 40 miles of gravel bike path instead of paved bike path.
Loose gravel or
Loose
packed?
gravel.
That blows.
And so we got off of it, went on some gravel back roads that were more tightly packed, and that's what we ended up doing. And then we got into Chicago proper, and we had like this weird situation where somebody had left the keys to the SAG van, and they were supposed so they left the keys to the SAG van in like a park, and which had been a rest stop, and then they drove off to Chick-fil-A to get Chick-fil-A donated. And they realized that they had left the keys over there because one of those push-to-start cars.
You mean,
So they realized they left the keys back there, which they'd driven away.
The keys to actually start the thing.
So they had already started it, but
So
they
it's
left
like a
the keys on.
proximity key, in
It was
other
like
words.
proximity key.
Okay.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
kidding.
And so they had to Uber back to get the keys,
shit.
and then they Ubered back to the Chick-fil-A.
Oh, my
And then
God.
they were in the car. I didn't realize this for a while, like days afterwards. They had like told us some BS about like, oh, Chick-fil-A is taking forever with the orders or something like
sorry,
that.
you guys, your lunch
sorry,
is
you guys,
cold.
your lunch. So we're sitting there, it's like 3:30, 4 p.m. Like where are these people? And then they finally drive back with the Chick-fil-A. And then we go on with the rest of our ride. And Chicago, by the way, crazy place to bike through, especially if you're not familiar with the city.
Sure, I bet.
Like the navigation system was telling us turn left onto Avenue F. And I'm like, where's Avenue F? Like I only see like 21st Street or whatever.
Right.
And it's like this like little avenue where you're in between houses and there's no cars there. It's just like people walking around. You're like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing now.
Okay.
But whenever we got into downtown, funny thing is that the person from Mexico, actually, really sweet girl, she said, and this was so shocking to me because I never ridden with her and she'd done anything like this. She said, "Hey Grant, can we be a car?" I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I got somewhere to be at 7. Like, can we just like get into like the lane, just like go really fast, like double pace this? And I'm like, okay, sure. And so we're going like 25 miles per hour down some downtown street
And just to
in Chicago.
explain, double pace is two riders next to each other.
Right, yeah, 2 abreast.
Okay.
And that was a phenomenal ride, phenomenal city to bike through.
And you're banging
yeah.
at 25.
Yeah, we're just going like 25 miles per hour. Like we're going like the same speed as the cars at that point.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really fun, and we had a great time
Must have
in
been
Chicago.
flat?
Yeah, flat.
Okay.
But Chicago's flat as a pancake.
Got it.
So 2 days after that, we had a rest day in Chicago. We had a 160-mile ride, which was our challenge day.
Right.
It was like, if you can do this, like, whoa, like, good on you. Like, this is so difficult was the way that we're thinking about it. And we started at like 5 a.m, and that day everybody finished, but it was one of the hardest days that we had the entire summer. And this is another ride that I would say I think back on as one of my favorites, even though it was really difficult. And that was into Madison, Wisconsin, which is another place that I loved.
Okay.
Nice.
So-
I have to ask though before we get too far ahead here. The person that like left the keys were you guys kind about that?
Okay. So we had this little tradition that was called the liability of the day.
And real quick before you go too far, this is a podcast. Go. So I just want to make sure you don't say anything that you're like this person listens to it and they're like, I can't believe you said that, Grant. But go
Oh,
ahead.
no, it's fine. Yeah,
Okay,
it's fine.
okay,
It's
cool,
completely
okay.
fine. So the liability of the day comes from the previous year. There had been a person on the team that everybody called the liability, and he came to speak to us before we went off on the ride. everybody
Why do I think that either you or I would be the liability guy on every ride?
Oh, for sure,
know,
Tony.
right?
Yeah.
I think it might just be your new nickname.
Yeah, the liability.
The liability.
Yeah, I don't know. What does that mean? Maybe I would be, maybe I wouldn't. I don't know.
Well, it's really cool. So at Alice, the day before, we had all these alumni come speak to us.
Okay.
And like the entire Ozarks team came to talk to us.
Right.
Like
Cool.
all 23, like people flew in from like Washington, D.C.
Wow.
or like Alaska,
Wow.
like all over the place.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so they came to talk to us, and somebody explained, among other traditions, that he had been called the liability the entire summer. And the reason for that is that he was like the person most likely to forget his water bottle at a rest stop, or to wake up with a hangover, or be grumpy, like whatever it is. So we were like, that's a little toxic. Like, we don't want to have somebody single out as a liability. Like, we'll just like not do that tradition. And then come 20 days later, 15 days later, whatever it was, we decided that in addition to the rider of the day tradition, which we had, which is in the morning, whenever we're about to go on a ride, we dubbed somebody, you're the rider of the day, you get to wear this American vest, which was super patriotic
yeah.
and so fun to ride through the South with, by the way.
Right. You
I
get
bet.
all the hoots and
Yeah.
hollers, yeah.
Yeah, like you wave at people, they will wave back.
Right.
They're just so excited to see somebody in an American vest biking along the road.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, in addition to that, we'd have the liability of the day. Originally, the symbol of this, the token that you had to bear, was this little like plastic cockroach that somebody's parents gave them, and you like put them on your jersey. By the way, I was both the first rider of the day for our team. That was the first day of the ride, and the first liability of the day. As it
Okay.
turns out, I just realized that actually.
What did you do to deserve the liability?
Well, what did I do to deserve rider of the day? I'm just that cool, but that's the question you should be asking. Yeah.
We go straight for the jugular.
Yeah.
I already knew the answer. Okay, so
Yeah.
now get back on fucking track, Grant.
Oh man,
Tell
he
us the
smells
dirt,
blood,
man.
man.
We're the podcast here, Grant. Okay.
What I had done is I had taken the van to an ice cream shop
right.
without telling like any of the leadership team or like anybody else. And I was
want
like,
some ice
yeah,
cream.
Give me some ice cream.
Because what happened is the person that I alluded to a couple times earlier, sweetest girl, she had said, "Hey, like, can we get ice cream?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I mean, we're gonna be late to this thing, so we can't tell anybody, but like, let's do it." And so my van of like 15 people went off and got ice cream. The other van was like waiting at the church that we're staying at that night, just like where is everybody? We have a meeting.
You got your chocolate dip cone.
Yeah, I
Come
had
back
a
with
great
chocolate
time.
all over your face, yeah.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah, so that next morning I got called out for it, and I was like, I'm not a liability, I'm an asset, just like, not to you,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah, right.
everybody
Well,
else.
Selective asset.
Again, to digress, the ride I just did, which was a large group ride, talking about that, like I was actually riding and I was trying to do something with the water, and of course it's like a Peloton, right, where there's a ton of riders, and because you mentioned I might be the liability, and I pulled a water bottle out. And of course, water bottles in the road are not a safe thing. And I flip and drop my water bottle, man. And I reached for the other one, and I pulled it out and I dropped it. I dropped both
Jesus.
my water bottles
Wow.
like within like 25 feet of each other, and pulled. And usually people just leave them, but I was like, no. So I pulled my bike over, went back.
Well, yeah, because you need water. I mean,
And that was another. Honestly, they're and to sound like I'm a cheap bastard, they weren't cheap water bottles. So I was like, I went back and got them. But most people just leave them out there, So anyway, so back. So you and I know we're jumping around here on the ride a little bit, but I want to make sure we don't leave anything out. So you went from Houston, or from College Station, Houston, I guess, around there, out to New Orleans. Started heading north,
Right.
and still you're still getting blasted by heat. You're
Right.
doing crazy rides.
Before we leave the South, if I can add one more thing to
course.
the list of favorite places that we went.
Yeah.
One was, and this goes in the category of favorite hosts.
Uh-huh.
This was in Paducah, Kentucky.
okay.
Small town.
So and again, I will get. So it seems like you're kind of heading over a little even more east.
Oh yeah, we go all over the place. We went to
because Kentucky. I'm thinking as you go north, you go through Mississippi, Arkansas, all that kind of stuff.
Well,
But you end up-
Kentucky is really wide, east
Right.
to west.
like
it's a long, wide, skinny
like Tennessee,
state.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
and in fact we go to Memphis too.
Oh, I love Memphis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so Paducah, Kentucky, small town, and the host we are staying at, they were part of a program in 2000 or 2008, something like
Okay.
that, which was to get artists to come live in the ghetto of Paducah.
Okay.
And they had completely redone their homes and turned it into this very eclectic, very interesting art galleries
Right.
and places where they sell art and make art, and they have studios. And so we stayed with them for for the night, and we had done this like many years in a row. So they were another one of those historic hosts, and they were always happy to have us. And they would split us up among these different families. So the host that I stayed with, he was a sculptor. He had like sculptures on his walls. He had like poetry on his walls. He was a really cool guy. We sat down. We tasted bourbon with him, and it was just myself and my friend Dominic who did that. So it was like everybody went off and they had these cool experiences with their hosts, and everybody had different experiences. And then we came back and we got to share and talk about it. And in fact, that dinner that night was one of my favorites for that reason, but also because all these hosts had made homemade meals for us. Cool. So we had like this Thanksgiving kind of potluck situation, and it just tasted very nostalgic and like home. Yeah, and whenever you're on the road, it's nice to taste home.
Yeah, better than cold Chick-fil-A.
Yes, right. Much better than cold Chick-fil-A.
Again, like everybody else is sitting around while you're eating ice cream.
No, I was gonna say not quite as good as ice cream. Not as good as
ice cream. Some girl asks, "Can we get ice cream?" And Grant just goes full on mush.
Nah, I don't think you deserve ice cream. We're staying here.
I make the calls here.
Yeah, right.
Who's got the keys? I don't leave these keys at a park. Yeah, right. I know exactly what I'm doing. So you Kentucky. So let's go through the states here. So you got Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, heading north. Right above Mississippi is Kentucky. It's not Kentucky.
That's Arkansas.
Right?
Arkansas, and then Tennessee.
Yep.
Kentucky.
Right.
Okay. And so far, and how's the heat? Heat's coming down a little bit, I guess.
Heat's still pretty high in Kentucky. I'd say it starts coming down in like Illinois.
And hilly too, by the way. Kentucky's
some parts of Kentucky.
Kentucky's a little hilly. Yeah. Arkansas's a little hilly. It wasn't that bad though. Hills more prevalent in like Wisconsin, which is where we went after Illinois. Okay. Madison.
Right.
And that ride was the 160-mile ride. The day after that, we were supposed to do 120. God, and I actually had a limp after the 160-mile ride. My left calf was so tight that I could barely walk. Fortunately or unfortunately, the trailer broke down that morning. And so we kind of canceled the ride. Yeah, no, we had lots of vehicle issues this summer. Both rides did.
And you were like, oh, shit. Yeah. Anybody want to go to the mall?
Yeah.
No, I fell asleep in a parking lot of a Walgreens that day. We were like, so wait, what? So we're like doing the ride, and we get a call that's like, hey, you need to stop. Like the trailer's not going to get there whenever you get to the finish line.
It sounds a little bit like it should be homeless people against cancer.
Yeah, something like that. That's what it feels like sometimes. No,
I was thinking the other direction. I'm thinking like maybe we should reach out to corporate America like Ford or Chevrolet and get them to donate a brand new vehicle.
I know.
Oh my God. Yeah, we could use it. It's true. We could. Those vans did not last long.
Any Ford executives that want to donate an F-150 Lightning and prove how far that electric vehicle can go, I guess that's the perfect spot for
I guess that's the question. Is the vehicle, is that like a vehicle that just gets carried year by year, or do you guys rent it or what?
The trailers we carry year to year. The vans we rent.
Really?
Yes. So we had a Mercedes Sprinter that had just passengers in it. Great van.
I bet.
New van, like almost no miles on it.
Okay.
Wow, cool.
That worked the entire summer. The other was like some Ford from probably like 2008, something like that. Like
a piece of shit.
Yeah, garbage. And
Tony, can I digress for a second?
Go ahead.
Did we not just do a podcast not long ago where I said I'm over American cars?
Yeah.
We did.
I think you say that on every podcast.
This kind of underlines that. So anyway, carrying on, moving on.
Yeah. Well, he said it was like a 2008.
Yeah, it was an old shit.
Yeah. The German car kept going. Just saying. Moving on. Okay.
Well,
how about that ice cream?
So we did a U-Haul for like 5 days in Arkansas, right. And that worked out all right. And we eventually replaced it with a Chevy that got us through the rest of the summer. Sierra, whenever their van broke down, they got a truck. And so they had like a Ram or something.
Okay.
And that worked pretty well for them. But funny enough, on the ride back, we picked up their van again because apparently the rental agency wanted us to do this and take it back to America.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do that. And then going through Utah, we were on our way to the Grand Tetons. It broke down on actually the side of a mountain. So we had to call a tow truck to tow us there. And that was very, very frustrating.
Okay.
As you can imagine.
So, also, you mentioned Sierra. Were you guys communicating with Sierra while you were riding?
Communicating minimally. Not because there's any distaste between the two groups necessarily, but because you're just so busy.
Right.
And some people did more than others, right? Because more people had friends.
Well, I guess that's the thing, because you're riding as a group early on, training with everybody.
Right,
so
you know everybody.
You know everybody, yeah.
Right.
And so pretty much you ride 100, 60, 80, 120 miles, 140 miles, holy crap, in one day. And then you get to where you're going to be, and they may take you to a children's hospital for you guys to talk to everybody about your mission.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you would do that, and sometimes you would stay at a, YMCA. You may stay at a host house. How often were you at host house versus like in the gymnasium of a church?
I can't tell you exactly, but it felt like half and half.
Okay.
And in Canada, we camped a lot more.
Camped.
And Sierra camped a lot more in general. They camped in the United States.
And no one, and only because I've talked to other people that have done this. I know the whole Sierra thing, and I think in a way, I mean, who the hell knows, right? I mean, everybody's got their own opinion, but I know the Sierra has to ride from Texas to California, and so they go through some pretty.
Right, there's a lot of desert there.
A lot of desert.
Yes.
They ride the they have ridden the extraterrestrial highway, for example, which I've driven, and it's pretty remote and pretty hot, pretty dry.
I've made that. I couldn't tell you how many times I've done that.
Yeah, and you can just imagine riding a bike across that.
No,
it's crazy. Yeah, so either way, I mean, and you kind of take it, you take it as a whole. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And I think any ride would have been epic, epic in its own ways. So you're moving through the country. You go through Kentucky, on up. You go to Illinois, and things kind of cool off a little bit. You go through Chicago, and what happens from there?
Chicago, we go to Madison. Like I said, that was a 106-mile ride.
And you loved it?
And it was so easy. No, it was terrible. It was a hard ride.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, what happened is we did the first 100 miles before 11 a.m. It felt incredible. We're like, oh, yeah, we're so good. We're so athletic.
Did you just say you did the first 100 before 11?
Yes. Wait, I think it was like 11, maybe 11:30, something like that.
What time
Definitely
did you
before
start?
noon, though. We woke up at like 3:30 and we started at 5.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, dude, that's cooking.
Yeah, that got to be like a 6-hour century.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah, it was
you
really,
know how I feel about that.
But it was really flat too.
Yeah,
that was part of it, and the winds were minimal. And then whenever we got into Wisconsin, it started getting hillier. The winds got worse, and I had done this with two of my best friends on the ride, and we were switching out like every several miles. Mm-hmm. Usually, the ride groups are between 3 and 6 people. Disadvantage of having small ride groups is that you switch off less whenever you're taking wind. And so we kind of got bit in the butt on that because once the winds got worse, we were just hitting our heads against the wall on that.
So how did you get a speed on the winds?
Oh, I don't know. The worst winds we had were 30 miles per hour, and that was in North Dakota.
That's crushing.
Yeah. That day, if memory serves, it probably was about 14 or 15. That's what it felt like, at least.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and headwinds that day.
What was your speed?
I don't know.
You're such a nerd, Tony. What was your speed?
I could look it up. Yeah.
Well, he can look it up.
Yeah.
Tony, you're a nerd. I can look it up.
You're a nerd.
And you're a nerd, Grant.
I am a nerd. Yeah.
I'm in a room full
We're
of
both
nerds.
nerds, so.
True.
Hey, this is just cycling lingo.
Yeah,
Sorry, I get it.
got
So, yeah.
Carry on.
But, sorry. I'm so, but again,
I know
get
you're
it.
into it, dude. It's
I am
fun.
totally into it. Yeah. Yeah, and you get through Wisconsin into South and North Dakota.
That's right. We spent one day in South Dakota and a couple of days in North Dakota.
And where you mentioned you stopped in Houston, New Orleans. What other stops did you have where you had a day off?
Yeah, Memphis, St. Louis, Chicago.
Before you get too far, we'll go one at a time. What did you do in Memphis?
Memphis, we went to see the Bass Pro Shop.
Of course you did.
Yeah,
in the
course.
pyramid.
The
In the pyramid.
Yeah,
okay.
Eighth wonder of the world, right?
Right on.
Yeah, that was crazy. We went to see Elvis's place, Graceland.
I love Graceland. What'd you think?
Oh, I was hugely disappointed.
Why?
We couldn't go in.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Well, there you go.
We had like 5 minutes there for one.
I almost got thrown out of Graceland.
Oh,
Really?
geez.
Yeah, public nudity. I'll get you.
I hear Paul Simon song coming.
Okay, let's go and stress this isn't all about you. Let me tell my quick story. Okay? We'll get back to you in just a minute. So I was there with some friends.
That's how we treat guests on this podcast.
Okay, Grant, I need you to shut the fuck up. Can you go get my whiskey?
Yeah,
Refill
right.
this. I'll be right back. You'll love this. Anyway, you can listen to it later. So no, I went there with some friends when I was, and we were at a conference. And for one, let me just be real clear. When you said that you weren't impressed, I was like, okay, because then you said you didn't go in. It kind of made sense. I really liked Graceland. I've never been a fan of Elvis. I mean, not like I respect Elvis, right? Mm-hmm. And then you go into Graceland, and suddenly you're like, I kind of get Elvis, right? I kind of get why. For one, he never wrote any of his music. Okay, everything he sang, other people wrote, right? Mm-hmm. But he was popular from like 1950 something to like 1970 something, something like that, right? And that guy, you know, and again, I'm going to quote my grandmother here. He had more gold records than a motherfucker. Okay, the guy just had boatloads of gold. I mean, like so many records in a very short period of time, and plus, it just seemed like he, you know, just had, like he just had his world, and he got a lot accomplished. Plus, there was a paisley suit there, a paisley tux.
I want one of those,
dude.
Yeah, rocking.
Nice.
Okay. Plus, he was in the Army.
Yes, everything about him. It just seemed like a really cool place. The reason I almost got kicked out is we were walking up. I didn't realize it, but he's buried there. Okay. And his whole family is buried there. And
I gotta ask: is he still on the commode? Or,
no. It's a very somber place, but I didn't realize that. Okay. I didn't realize somber was a requirement.
Yeah.
So I'm walking up to where it is, and there's a statue of Jesus. Okay, like, you know, in kind of with the hands out pose like this, and I wanted to take a picture of it. Okay, and one of my friends, as I was about to take a picture of it, one of my friends starts to walk into the frame, and he goes, "Ooh, I'm sorry," and he starts backing out, and I said, "No, Terry, get in there with Jesus," and we all started laughing, but I didn't realize that there was like all these people on the other side that were like praying to Elvis, right? So we're all like laughing like little kids.
I thought you were gonna say we saw the thing of Jesus and like that doesn't look much like Elvis.
I know, no. It's just like I was taking a picture of it. I'm like, no, Terry, get in there with Jesus. And we thought that was funny, and we all laughed. And then I didn't realize that was like the place where you weren't supposed to laugh.
You're such an idiot.
Yeah, whatever.
No, I would be right there with you, cracking jokes.
And most of it, but most of the whole time I was in there, I was like, I walked in here with a certain opinion of Elvis, and I walked out with a different opinion.
Okay.
So you didn't get a chance to see Graceland.
Back to the bike ride.
Back. No, you know, Grant's left now. Yeah, sorry, everybody.
He took offense to the Elvis joke.
It's like, it's not even funny. So see what happens now. I put this podcast on. People will be like, I get canceled. Yeah. So you went to the Bass Pro Shop, which is pretty awesome, and you spent a day in Memphis. Where else did you stop?
St. Louis.
Arches.
Went to see the arches actually on the ride into St. Louis and go up them later.
Is that the Golden Arches?
Just the one of them. Just Arch. Golden Arch, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, that's why I asked. That was really subtle humor right there.
That was McDonald's joke. It took me a second to get
it. It was subtle, but I don't know if it was humor.
Well, you guys said Arches, and there's only one, so that's why I was wondering if it was McDonald's you went to see.
It was just McDonald's, singular. So you went to St. Louis. What else?
Chicago.
Okay.
Did you go see the Bean?
We did see the Bean.
It's cool, isn't it?
It's weird.
It is cool.
Yeah.
The Bean?
You know about this?
No.
It's a piece of architecture or I don't know, sculpture.
It's art.
Yeah, it's art. Yeah. In Chicago. And you just go out and see it in downtown.
It's literally like a giant lima bean, but it's chrome. And it reflects everything around it.
That's
interesting. Okay. Yeah. What else?
Yeah. So in Chicago, we saw Abbott, which is one of our sponsors.
Okay.
That was a good time.
The pharmaceutical company.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're our presenting sponsors, so they give us more money than I think any of the other ones.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we visited a Texas 4000 alumni there. So this is somebody who rode like probably 6 or 10 years ago, something like that. And he, funny enough, this is one of the stories that's going to stick with me for a while, I can tell. He had done a 2-year bikepacking trip with his wife for their honeymoon. And I thought that was the coolest thing. So they started in Europe and crossed all of Asia by the end of it. You meet a lot of bikepackers on the trip.
I bet.
Yeah. Especially in like the Yukon area, Alaska area, because people will do Montana to Alaska very frequently, or the reverse, and they'll do Alaska to South America very frequently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or relatively frequently, at least.
All right, everybody. That ends part 1 of this podcast. We'll pick up with Grant's epic Texas 4000 journey on the next podcast, which I'll post in about a week. Thanks for listening. This has been an Analog Spectrum production and presentation. All you Spectrum maniacs out there, whatever platform you're using, are you following us? If not, why not? Following us is one small step for a man or a woman, but it is a giant leap for humankind. And it really helps get our small but ever-expanding show out there, too. Also, please listen to all the episodes, or at least the ones you think might interest you. If you like it, then share it. Spread that positive Analog Spectrum vibe. It's a great way to show your friends and family how much you care, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a big kick out of seeing our numbers steadily rise. Finally, leave a comment and rate our show and the episode. 5 stars are always appreciated. Moreover, we want to hear from you. Share your show ideas and ask your questions. We'll even answer your questions on the show if you'd like. You can email us at analogspectrum, that's all one word, @gmail.com. If you tweet, then tweet at us. That's @analogspectrum. Finally, we have a Facebook group. I don't do much on there, but I watch it like a hawk. You put something on there, and I'll see it. Again, thanks for listening, and we hope you have a great day.